What if I told you that one of the most fragile parts of your body, the part you've always been warned to protect at all costs, is actually strong enough to survive a fall from a 5-story building? Sounds impossible, right? That's exactly what I thought, until I saw it with my own eyes. For as long as I can remember, the eyes have been described as delicate, sensitive, and incredibly easy to damage. A speck of dust can make them water. A small bump can leave you in pain. But what if that's not the whole truth? What if your eyes are hiding a secret level of resilience that no one ever talks about? Today on The Wellness Way, we're diving into an experiment so unusual, so shocking, that it flips everything we've been told about eye anatomy upside down. Picture this: an eyeball, not shattering, not bursting, but bouncing, literally bouncing, after being dropped from staggering heights. So if you've ever wondered what your body is truly capable of, you're about to discover a side of human biology that feels almost unreal. Stick around, because this story might just change the way you see yourself forever. And before we begin, don't forget to hit that subscribe button to support The Wellness Way. That's what keeps us creating more content that opens your eyes, literally and figuratively. I used to believe that the eyes were the most fragile part of the human body. Ever since childhood, I was told to be careful with them. Don't rub them too hard, don't get dust in them, don't stare directly at the sun. The message was always the same: your eyes are delicate, weak, and vulnerable. And for the most part, it made sense. I mean, think about it. A tiny eyelash can make your eye water uncontrollably, and the slightest scratch on the surface can cause days of irritation. So I grew up convinced that the eye was a fragile piece of glass, always one wrong move away from cracking. But then something happened that shattered that belief. I stumbled upon an experiment so unusual, so bizarre, that it completely flipped my perspective. Imagine hearing that an eyeball, something you've always considered delicate, was strong enough to survive a fall from a 5-story building. Not only survive, but actually bounce. It sounds like the setup for a bad joke or a wild internet hoax, but I'm telling you, it was real. And watching it unfold was one of the most surreal experiences of my life. The experiment started in a classroom setting with 2 instructors casually talking about eye anatomy. At first, it seemed like just another lecture. They explained how the eye has different layers, and one of those, the outer layer called the fibrous layer, is surprisingly tough. They showed a cow's eye, pointing out the sclera, which is the white part, and the cornea, the clear part in the front. Both of these are made from dense connective tissue, which means they're not just flexible, but also built to withstand pressure. That alone caught my attention, because I had never thought of the eye as something strong. But the real shock came next. One of the instructors admitted that he'd been told by a professor that the outer part of the eye was so tough, it could actually bounce. He'd been repeating this story for years, almost as if it were an urban legend, but he had never put it to the test. Until now. That's when things got interesting. Instead of just taking the anatomy lesson at face value, they decided to experiment, to see if this bizarre claim was actually true. And to do that, they brought in several cow eyes that had been discarded and were about to be thrown away. The idea was simple: drop them from different heights and see what happens. When they first squeezed the cow eye with their hands, it didn't burst or collapse. It held its shape. That was already surprising. But then they set up for the real test, dropping it. The first attempt wasn't dramatic. They dropped it from about table height. And here's the crazy part. Instead of splattering on the ground like you'd expect from something soft and filled with fluid, the eyeball literally bounced. I froze when I saw it. My brain was waiting for the messy explosion, but the exact opposite happened. Of course, one test wasn't enough. They decided to push it further. The second test took place from a stairwell starting on the second floor. By now, I was convinced the eye had no chance. Surely the impact from that height would destroy it. But again, I was wrong. The eyeball hit the ground, and once more it bounced. Not cracked, not flattened, intact. I could feel the disbelief growing inside me, mixing with a strange sense of awe. And then came the ultimate test, the 5th floor. Just picture the tension, standing at the top of a stairwell, peering down 5 stories, holding something everyone believes is fragile. The countdown began. 5, 4, 3, 2, and then the drop. The eyeball fell, hit the landing below with a sound that made me flinch. And then it bounced. Not only did it survive the fall, but it bounced so convincingly that I couldn't stop laughing in shock. 15 years of curiosity, as the instructor put it, had finally been answered. The eyeball didn't shatter. It didn't even split. It was still intact, still holding its shape, still proving that the eye isn't nearly as fragile as we think. Watching this experiment was more than just a fun science demo. It was a humbling reminder of how much we underestimate the human body. For years I thought of my eyes as weak, but seeing a real eye endure something so extreme forced me to realize that the truth is more complicated. Yes, the eye is sensitive. Yes, it reacts to tiny particles or sudden light. But underneath that sensitivity lies a toughness most of us never imagined. The story didn't just shock me, it made me curious about what other fragile parts of the body might actually be tougher than they appear. How many misconceptions do we carry around simply because no one has ever challenged them? This experiment was more than just bouncing eyeballs. It was about challenging assumptions, flipping beliefs upside down, and learning to look at the body in a new way. Even now, I can still picture that moment in slow motion, the eyeball falling through the air, hitting the ground, and bouncing back like a ball. It was such a bizarre image, but also unforgettable, because in that moment I stopped seeing the eye as just a fragile organ and started seeing it as something remarkable, a piece of biology designed not only for vision, but also for resilience. And that's what I'll carry with me every time I think about this experiment. The eyes may be windows to the soul, but they're also small miracles of strength, strong enough to bounce when everything in you expects them to break. The moment that eyeball bounced instead of breaking, I knew there was something deeper going on. It wasn't just a funny experiment anymore. It was proof of something bigger, something about the way our bodies are built that most of us never stop to appreciate. For years, I thought of the eye as fragile, like a soap bubble. But that one test made me realize the outer structure of the eye is actually built like armor. When the instructors explained why the eye could survive those drops, it finally clicked. The secret lies in the outer layer of the eye, the sclera and the cornea. Both are made from dense connective tissue. If you've never heard that term before, think of it as nature's version of reinforced fabric. It's tough, it's resilient, and it's designed to hold things together. The sclera, the white part of your eye, doesn't just give your eyeball its shape. It's the anchor point for the tiny muscles that let you look left, right, up, down, and even twist your eyes in ways you probably don't notice. The cornea, meanwhile, is the clear window at the front that lets light in. Both parts do different jobs, but together they form a shield around the delicate inner layers of the eye. What struck me the most is how contradictory the eye really is. On one hand, it's incredibly sensitive, speck of dust can make it water, and a sudden flash of light can make you squint in pain. But at the same time, it's incredibly tough. It can hold its shape under pressure, endure physical impact, and resist forces that should have destroyed it. That contradiction is fascinating to me, fragile and strong at the same time, vulnerable yet resilient. And it made me wonder, how many other parts of our bodies carry the same hidden strength? How often do we underestimate what we're made of because we only focus on the sensitive side of things? The experiment with the bouncing eyeballs felt like a metaphor for life itself. We often believe we're fragile, one bad moment away from breaking. But just like the eye, maybe we're tougher than we think. Maybe resilience is built into us in ways we don't recognize until we're tested. But here's the important part. Just because the outer eye is strong doesn't mean the whole organ is indestructible. Inside the sclera and cornea lies the retina, the optic nerve, and other delicate structures that actually make vision possible. These are the truly sensitive parts, the ones that don't survive impact or trauma. So, while it's amazing to know the eye can bounce, it doesn't mean we can take risks with our vision. It doesn't mean we should ignore eye safety or stop protecting them. That's where I feel the biggest lesson is. We often live at the extremes, either thinking something is completely weak or completely strong. But the truth is usually more balanced. The eye is both. Its outer layer is durable, almost shockingly so, but its inner workings are vulnerable. To me, that feels like the perfect analogy for how humans function. On the outside, we might look tough, but inside, we're carrying things that are fragile. Our emotions, our hopes, our ability to trust. The lesson isn't to dismiss the strength or ignore the fragility. It's to recognize both and treat them with the care they deserve. From a practical standpoint, this experiment reminded me just how important it is to take care of my vision. Safety glasses might look unnecessary until one accident changes everything. UV protection might seem like overkill until years of sunlight quietly damage your cornea. Regular checkups with an eye doctor might feel optional, but they can catch diseases before they rob you of your sight. Knowing the sclera and cornea are strong doesn't give me permission to be careless. It gives me motivation to be even more protective, because I now understand how much is at stake. And yet, the more I think about it, the more symbolic this whole thing feels. The bouncing eyeball is a reminder of resilience, but also of boundaries. It can bounce, yes, but it's not invincible. It's a survivor, not a superhero. And maybe that's exactly what we need to remember about ourselves. We're built to withstand challenges, but that doesn't mean we should throw ourselves recklessly into harm's way. Strength is real, but so is vulnerability. I also couldn't help but think about the science beyond the classroom. If the structure of the eye is this strong, what else could we learn from it? Could its dense connective tissue inspire new medical materials, like better implants or stronger protective gear? Could studying the biomechanics of the eye help us understand pressure, resilience, and endurance in new ways? It fascinates me that sometimes the answers to big questions in science are hidden in the ordinary details of our own biology. Ultimately, this experiment taught me more than anatomy. It taught me perspective. I no longer see my eyes as weak organs hanging on by a thread. I see them as a blend of strength and sensitivity, designed to endure but also to be cherished. And the more I think about it, the more grateful I am for the complexity of the human body. We are, all of us, walking contradictions, fragile and resilient, soft and strong, and maybe that's the real beauty of it. So the next time I think about my eyes, I won't just think about their colour or their ability to see. I'll think about that cow eye bouncing on the ground, defying my expectations, reminding me that strength often hides where we least expect it. And I'll remind myself to care for them not because they're weak, but because they're precious, precious enough to deserve both respect and protection. When I first saw that cow eye bounce on the floor instead of shattering, I laughed in disbelief. But later, as I kept replaying the image in my mind, I realized it wasn't just a quirky experiment. It was something bigger, something symbolic. That moment was like a window into how much more we still have to learn about the human body and about ourselves. Think about it. We walk around every day taking our bodies for granted. We assume we know which parts are weak, which parts are strong, which parts can endure, and which can't. But the truth is, most of us don't really know. We live with assumptions passed down through phrases like the eyes are fragile, or don't strain your back, or the heart is strong. These sayings stick with us, but they often oversimplify the complexity of the human body. What that bouncing eyeball reminded me is that science thrives on challenging assumptions. And sometimes what seems obvious turns out to be completely wrong. That idea excites me because it means there are still mysteries hidden inside of us. We tend to look outward, into space or technology, for discovery. But what if some of the greatest discoveries are right here, inside our own skin? The eye alone is proof of that. Its outer layer is strong enough to survive impact, while its inner layers are delicate enough to sense the faintest ray of light. It's a paradox, a duality, a contradiction, and that's exactly what makes it fascinating. The more I think about it, the more I see this experiment as a metaphor for resilience. We often believe that being strong means never breaking, but strength, real strength, is often about flexibility and balance. The eye doesn't resist pressure by being stiff and brittle. It does it by being firm yet adaptable, by having layers that work together to absorb and distribute force. Isn't that exactly how resilience works in life? We don't survive hardships by pretending they don't affect us. We survive by bending, by adapting, by letting different layers of ourselves share the weight until we can bounce back. There's also something powerful about realizing that hidden strength doesn't mean invincibility. That eye survived the fall, yes, but it didn't mean the eye was indestructible. The inner parts, the retina, the optic, nerve, still could have been damaged if it had been a living eye. In the same way, our resilience in life doesn't mean we are unbreakable. It means we are capable of withstanding more than we think, while still needing protection, care, and respect. That balance between strength and vulnerability is one of the most universal human truths. We are all carrying something fragile inside us: dreams, relationships, emotions, hopes. Just like the eye, those inner layers need protection. And maybe that's where community, love, and self-care come in. They act like the sclera and cornea, forming a protective outer shield so the inner parts of us can keep functioning. But beyond the metaphor, this experiment also made me think about the future of science. If the structure of the eye is this resilient, what else could it teach us? Could engineers study the connective tissue of the sclera to design better protective materials? Could medical researchers use its properties to create new types of implants or surgical techniques? Biology has often been the blueprint for innovation. Look at how studying birds led to airplanes, or how studying geckos led to advanced adhesives. Why couldn't the eye inspire the next breakthrough? It also connects to something bigger: our curiosity. Watching that experiment reminded me of why science matters in the first place. It's not just about memorizing facts or repeating what's in textbooks. It's about asking bold questions, testing crazy ideas, and being willing to be surprised. For 15 years, that instructor carried around a claim that eyes could bounce, and he finally put it to the test. That kind of curiosity is what moves science forward. For me, as a viewer, it reignited a sense of wonder. I didn't just learn something about anatomy, I learned something about how much we don't know. And honestly, I find that inspiring. Because if something as ordinary as an eyeball can hold a surprise like this, what else in life have I been underestimating? So here's where I land. The bouncing eye isn't just about anatomy, and it isn't just about resilience. It's about perspective. It's about reminding ourselves that what looks fragile might not be. It's about respecting the hidden strength inside our bodies and inside ourselves. And it's about approaching the world with curiosity instead of assumptions. Next time you blink, next time you notice your reflection in the mirror, think about it. Those eyes you see aren't just windows to the soul. They're also small, resilient miracles capable of more than you probably give them credit for. To me, that realization changes everything. And maybe that's the question I want to leave with you. What else in your life have you been underestimating? What strengths are hidden in places you've always assumed were weak? If a simple cow's eye can bounce when dropped from a 5th-story building, maybe you too are carrying more resilience than you realize. When I first saw that cow's eye bounce off the ground instead of bursting, I thought it was just a quirky science trick. But the more I sat with it, the more I realized it carried a lesson that went far beyond anatomy. It wasn't only about the strength of the eye, it was about the hidden resilience that exists in places we never expect. For most of my life, I believed eyes were fragile. They water at the smallest irritation, they ache under a bit of strain, and we're constantly told to protect them. And yes, all of that is true. But this experiment revealed another truth, that the outer layer of the eye is remarkably tough, built to withstand forces that seem unimaginable. The eye is both sensitive and strong, delicate and durable. And isn't that the story of life itself? What struck me is how often we underestimate not only our bodies but ourselves. We convince ourselves we're too fragile to handle certain challenges, too weak to recover from setbacks. But resilience doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it's hidden in plain sight, waiting for a test to prove it. That's what the bouncing eye showed me. We all carry more strength than we think, even if it's wrapped in layers of sensitivity. At the same time, this isn't a call to recklessness. Just because the outer eye is strong doesn't mean the entire eye is indestructible. The inner layers, the retina, the optic nerve, remain delicate and vital. That balance is the real beauty, strength paired with vulnerability. To me, it's a reminder that caring for ourselves doesn't make us weak. It makes us wise. Protection, rest, and self-care are the ways we honor both our toughness and our fragility. So here's the lesson I carry with me. Resilience is rarely all or nothing. We are not either fragile or strong. We are both. And that balance is what allows us to survive, to adapt, and to keep going even when life drops us from great heights. Now I want to turn this back to you. After hearing this story, what do you think? Did it surprise you to learn that eyes are this resilient? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your perspective, and I know others will too. And before you go, don't forget to subscribe to The Wellness Way. That's how you can support us in creating more content that challenges what you think you know and helps you see the world and yourself in a new light.